Do you hear that? It's something quite extraordinary. If you pay attention and listen closely, you'll hear the stories of senior executives transforming brands and the experiences of real people in their natural habitat with those very same brands. Follow your host, Dennis Wakabayashi, as he pulls out his microphone to capture authentic reactions from the people he meets as he travels around the world. These are unrehearsed, unsponsored, and real conversations about CX that you won't find anywhere else. This is CX in the Wild.
Hi. How do I say your name?
Utibe.
Utibe.
Or you can call me Tibe, but Utibe is how it's pronounced. Yep.
Is that Tibe? Might be easier. Just
whatever you
Utibe, Tibe.
Yep.
Bassey.
That's right.
And we're here at Reuters Customer Service and Experience 2022 event here in San Diego.
Right.
I'm just walking the halls and talking to people about customer experience. I just happened to pick you out because I'm introducing you as the moderator for, it's for reactive to predictive, utilizing AI to transform the service experience. You're going to be speaking on stage today with some other leaders. I thought I always like to just meet people before I introduce them because we build a little rapport and it makes it a little easier for the audience. So here's the thing. This is a podcast I do called CX in the Wild. Totally unscripted, random people. Sometimes I just grab customers on the street. It's like anyone.
Yeah.
And so in this, rather than focus on telling the story of you about what you do, I tend to like to focus my content on how people think. So it's really just the discussion.
Great.
Do you want to, maybe we could just start out with a little bit about you, how you got into the CX industry, your background, set the stage for us, Tibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm originally from Nigeria, which is important because a lot of my passion around the topic of experience was born out of experiences, as a customer in Nigeria. But saying all that to say, just overall, lived in Connecticut, Illinois, Jersey, and now I live in Richmond, Virginia. The topic of customer experience has, for me, it's the language around it is relatively new for me in the past, like to say 10 years. But the intention of the experiences, that's not new, right? I didn't call it CX back then, but I found that I was always very interested in outcomes for people, right? And so even, when I was younger and in roles where I loved the team, I loved the job, but I was like, I don't know how this helps people. I would have these, what I would lovingly call, what I would lovingly call a quarter life existential crisis. I was like, I really love this role, this job, but I don't see the connection to people. And so I actually at that point thought the only way to do a job that benefits people was to go to nonprofit. So I had a little bit of a stint where I thought that I need to go work for a nonprofit, and I quickly learned that was not for me at the time, and that was not the only way. And so I sort of stumbled into this function of customer experience and customer service. I just so happened to be, as part of a sort of a rotational program, I just so happened to be placed in a customer service role. I will literally tell you that again sort of propelled me in this path. Like that was for an internship. I went back to school. I found every class that I could find on service operations, got every book that I could find on service operations. But long story short, for me, everything boils down to two things. One is how people see and treat themselves. And number two is how people see and treat one another. So customer experience is sort of the fancy corporate language for that. But that's really what I'm solving for in any role. That's the two things.
Wow. I've talked to some leaders here, and there is this sort of theme that I feel grateful that the industry has empathy as part of its personality. And whether it's mental health or creating a culture where people have permission to fail forward, or adaptive learning, or just frankly, I'm always preaching about normalizing failure as the starting point for learning and change. And so if we think about change, some businesses, because of their size or their culture, sometimes change is is analogous to failure because how they've done things has been winning. So they don't want to change that. And I think I share that with you because I think sometimes the need to perform creates the need not to fail. And that translates down to the human beings who are working. And you really opened my eyes just now about how we see ourselves and how we see each other is a really important aspect of how we provide better experiences for humans as we come in contact with them.
100%. I think you have to have the how we see ourselves piece. That's very insightful for me as well. Because if we don't see ourselves, if our teams don't see themselves as people who are capable of taking risks, who are people who are capable of saying, yes, we can try that to the customer, people who are empowered. If that's not even like you're told to be empowered, because people say, yes, empower your team. What does that mean? If they don't embody all it means to be empowered, and they don't see their inherent value, they don't see how important they are to the mission of an organization, they can't deliver on that experience to the customer. And likewise, if we don't see our customers as worthy of the investment, if we don't see our customers and the outcomes of their lives as important, as critical, if we see them only as numbers or only as people who pay us money and not as whole human beings, it also sort of falls short there. So that's why for me, it's about perception of self and perception of others, and everything else, honestly, I've found will flow from that.
You know, you're the first person I've ever heard say perception of self, but it makes so much sense. You know, I go around the world and I talk to different cultures about CX. And I just recently got back from Dubai, where I was talking to the leaders who created Expo 2020 Dubai, the largest, best experience in the world. State of the art. Best is in terms of, well, on most levels, just keeping it real. But there, the leaders, you know, you're talking about one of the most complicated efforts in experience planning, execution, design, management in a short amount of time. $23 billion of investments in a very short amount of time to have an event that only ran roughly 6 months. And the leadership there, all of them had this, I was trying to get to like, what is the secret to this? Like, how do you pull this off? And it was things like teamwork, respecting people's ability to learn or fail or take risks, as you said. And it was refreshing to me to see that at the very top, a sense of awareness for its people working together. That really touched me. And what I found also interesting in their execution is they brought together government, culture, business, countries. So they had all of these people. They had 142 different countries, some of which were at war with each other, participate in an event in harmony. And how do you do that? So to what you were saying, how I see myself and my ability to contribute positively, if I feel like I'm worthwhile when I do this, it's going to translate to every other part of the business.
Absolutely. So the thing, so I like that you started this with just understanding how people think, right? Not the functional parts of the job.
Yeah.
If there's something that I'm solving for in every way, right, role or not role, it's this idea, and I hope I'm not the only one thinking like this, but just in case, this idea of love in business. This idea, I'm solving for a world where organizations literally love people, and I can talk more about what that means. It's not the feeling, it's not hugs or high fives, but it's a real intention to love, see, honor, respect people. We are wired as a species to respond to that. There's no way that if you have that as part of your strategy, that you will not get the best out of people and you will not get outcomes like you're describing even in Dubai. And so it's cool to hear the tenets of that, even as you describe what you saw in Dubai and how they brought nations together and they had probably a big vision and they empowered people. And I know it's hard, but it's even more important when the work is hard for people to not just feel love, but to actually be loved. And I can talk more about what that means. But that is the ultimate outcome that I'm solving for, that organizations love both their customers and their employees, and they'll be amazed at what happens as a result of that.
It's like a sixth love language, like corporate collaboration. It's like, have you read the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Yeah. So I love that you're saying that. It's it's I probably have only heard that idea a few rough other times in my career when you think about the intensity of passion for the customer like Steve Jobs had.
Mm.
But as a tenet of business, love, it's a bold statement that you just made. That term doesn't really get play at the boardroom.
Yeah.
So I applaud your boldness.
It's a long-term intention that it becomes so normal because we can't. This is literally people are designed for that. There's all these studies, but if you find that you have two colleagues that you want to drive the best experience or drive the best outcomes or even stay, right? We're seeing retention in the labor. We have this thing on 12 in the labor market, right? But if we listen to what people are saying in terms of what's driving the behavior that we're seeing even now, you can track it back to people not feeling seen, not feeling valued, not feeling like the organizations care about them. Of course they're going to leave. So these are the things that if you really unpack it, again, love is not a feeling. It's not about mushiness, but there's some key tenets, and that's why I say that word. That's why I have to give that preface before
Break
saying
it down for me. Unpack all that for me, because here's what I think. I'm grateful for having this conversation with you for my audience, because this message that you're saying, it's not popularized. You're not borrowing that or cultivating it. I can see that you're pioneering and trying to make a statement. Please unpack your tenets, because the more people can share this idea and give you a platform to break the tenets down, because you can't just throw love into a conference room. So break it down for us.
Sure. So for simplicity's sake for myself, there's like 4 things I think about. So when we love people, right? If you think about I'll give it some preface and then I'll talk about it a little bit. So this notion of love is not unlike what we experience on a day-to-day basis. I think it's the introduction of it in the corporate context that feels weird.
Yeah.
But if we think about any of our closest relationships and friendships, why have they thrived over time? Why has your best friend been your best friend? Like why does it, from even parental to to child, what is it about these relationships that we have outside of this quote unquote corporate world have stood the test of time? It's the same things. We feel listened to. There's trust being built, right? One of the key markers of connection is someone sacrificing for you, right? If I went out of my way to do something for you, that's showing love, right? If I don't have to empathize, but I come and empathize with you. I sit with, you may be a sort of super senior leader, but you come and you sit with the folks in the call center, not as a suit, but as someone walking in their shoes. Those are the things that we see that communicate love, that communicate respect. And it's impossible for human beings, I guarantee you, because that's the DNA of a human being, to not respond to that. So there are 4 things I think about when I think about love. The first is leadership, right? How do we, and that's, I made an acronym for it. This is just thoughts that are really just brewing in me in real time. How do we lead, right? A leader's role is critical in imparting love. What do you signal? What are the things that are normal in your organization in terms of how you treat people and how you see people? Do we, call people by name? Do we acknowledge them? These are very key things that are important to communicate love. 2, I think companies can impart love through their offerings, through their products and services. Is the thing that you make, and this may be pushing it, but is the thing you make, is it good for people? Is it, are you saying it's 0% sugar, but is it really 0% sugar? There's no boundaries to this thing of love. Like, how are we leaving people? That's the main question. At the end of the day, when a customer interacts with your organization, how have you left them? Have you left them feeling more stressed? Have you left them feeling more better about yourself? Have you left your employees, if someone works for you for 20 years and they leave, do they have a better sense of who they are? Do they have a better sense of empowerment? Or are we leaving people dejected? Are we leaving people burnt out? And then they have to take that burnout and go home. So if L is for leadership, O is for offerings, V is for value, and how we measure success. A lot of us measure success as typical, right? Bottom line, earnings per share, first call resolution. I think there should be a push, a KPI around love. I think there should be a KPI about people, the outcomes for people at the end of the day. I think that's actually the real bottom line. It's how people are at the end of the day. And the E is for engagement. And you're basically, this is the first time I'm actually articulating this in public. So this is as, this is as man on the street as it comes. But how we lead, how we curate our offerings, and how we leave people, what we measure. And the fourth one is engagement, how we build relationships. But this notion of love is I think critical for us to recoup what we're losing now in real time from the labor market, for us to recoup what we will continue to see in terms of customer behavior and shifts. But we cannot override the one true thing is this is how humans were designed.
It's funny that we have these terms like human-centered design, but we leave out the most important aspect of being human, is love. So, I thank you for sharing. Like this is why I do it, CX in the Wild, because we get to say things that are not scripted and not like on an agenda. I'll throw out something to you that you made me think of. When I was at Expo, I had an opportunity to interview a woman named Ala Al-Sharugi. And she managed the virtual expo, but also she was very aware and interested in working with the behavioral analytics of the people, the humans. And here's one of the things that it shook me. Like when she said it, I just stopped in my tracks, and I was like, in the middle of the interview, I was like, wait a second. I lost my game because I had to process what she was saying. But I'll throw it out to you because it might be something about your team. Here was one of the things she was explaining to me. You have a person who goes into an experience. In their case, it's something spectacular, right? But she said you have a persona that goes into this experience and they experience it and something happens. But she said, there's an interesting another aspect. When you watch a mother and a child they're different people going through their lives with some shared experiences, but they're all like a perspective of one another. And they have this new shared experience that their essential consumer DNA, but also their lives as human beings is enriched or brought together in a moment of an experience. And so it made me think, how many experiences have I designed where I wanted a mother and child or a father and child when they ate my cheeseburger or when they made their deposit into the bank to share something that enriched their lives as humans together? I see you nodding your head. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, that resonates so much because I think even in the example that you've just shared shows someone who's thinking about the outcome for people.
That's right.
Beyond we got them to come. They bought a ticket. They will return. They will tell it beyond advocacy and the things that are important. Like trust me, as a CX professional, I get those things are very important. In addition, they're thinking about the outcomes for humans and how does this enrich their relationships. One of the when thinking about this and talking about this, and trust me, I actually don't talk about this much. This is really a nascent thing for me. I think a lot about an example I give is, not to pick on the post office, but just to take the post office, for example. You say you go to your local post office, you get there, maybe you're in a pretty good mood, but then you stand, you wait in line, you're holding your heavy box that you want to mail, you wait in line, there's one person at the counter. By the time that person happens to not be polite, by the time you leave, you're stressed out, you're feeling frustrated. That energy is not leaving you. Maybe you're taking it to the road. Maybe you're taking it to your son. Like it's not like I think there's a greater accountability that I want us as leaders to have on literally what state are we leaving people in? Do we understand that role that we played in sending someone out into the world that's now more frustrated and now more disenfranchised, and then they have to take that forward to someone else?
I get a drink. I am so I'm so aligned to what you're saying. One of the reasons why I think I spend my time doing what I do, because I worked. Yeah, go ahead. CX in the Wild. It's all real. one of the things I noticed, the corporate machine oftentimes is soulless. It's about efficiencies. It's about achievement. It's about growth. And it works. So it hurts to see when we don't have love or empathy or exactly what you're saying. And what are we doing to humans with our experiences? Number one, now you're getting me to talk off cuff. Why are we trying to get people to buy things they don't need? Like you made me think, a business that's designed to take from someone that's not healthy. There's a lot of toxic business, let's just say that. And fear culture and achievement doesn't necessarily have to be the only way. Empowerment and normalizing failure and giving people permission. And what I will say, just listening to you briefly, just having met you, in those world leaders who are doing those epic experiences, they're all on that same experience you are, which is how does this impact society?
Yeah, I'm very encouraged to hear that.
I was too. When I left, I was like, yes, thank goodness that at the top somebody actually cares about people.
Yeah, because it's and I wonder if that's the altitude how do we get every leader to see about altitude? Because one of the, this thing is happening out of random, but like one of the things that COVID has shown me, and I know it's an obvious point, and it shouldn't, take pandemics, but really how interconnected we are.
Yep.
And how when something that happens here will impact something like we're seeing this with the supply chain, where it's not even just like literally, but like every single part of our lives are interconnected some way, shape, or form. Meaning, it's kind of like a giant game of whack-a-mole. If we harm something here, we have to pay for it somewhere else. And we see that in business, but we don't maybe necessarily pay attention to it. There's cause and there's effect. If we do really well, earnings per share and profit-wise, but we've left a generation of people burnt out, like we will pay for that somehow, right? And that's the connection so I love that you're seeing leaders at that level thinking about the net impact of events, the net impact. Like I'm sure that they're thinking about, if we're bringing all these nations together, it could inform even better. Like I love that, and I think that's the altitude that even in the business world, and I say the real bottom line is once you've hit your sales goals or your cost goals, your people goals are not just about retention or whatever it is that we measure. The state of people should be part of how we evaluate how well we've done.
That's right, 100%. So now I'm going to get personal because you made me say this. You've opened it up. I'll just say, my small business, I went from 5 to 40 people in just the last 6 months.
That's incredible.
And here's what I did. I decided that I would not repeat what I had seen as successful in business. I made it so we have to have a culture of sacrificing for each other, that each person, our job is to make the team work. If a person can't do it, then get it for them, because they're going to get it for you. It sounds hokey, but I have this thing about being good vibes only in our business. I've had this. It's amazing how I've had to take a stand, and I see you taking a stand, trying to insert this word love into the boardroom. Here's what, I have a basic rule. I can't defend and all fronts, but here's my basic thing. I won't work with anyone who points the finger at another person. If you're a client and you point the finger at somebody on our team, I'll resign the client right there on the spot. I'll just say, we're not allowed to attack people to get the job done. And if I have employees and they're not even employees, they're teammates, if they point the finger at each other, I just say, not now. Like, that's not what we're here for. We have to acknowledge everyone is at a different stage in life dealing with something different. Our job is to help each other. It's not about to point out failures. It's about to recognize where we can improve or help them get from point A to point B. My mom, she passed away, but she said, your job in life is just help people get from point A to point B. And I share those things with you because in your tenets of love, the one that stuck out to me was sacrifice. I don't hear anybody in corporate business saying, hey, let's charge it to the game. Let's take one for them. They may as sometimes, but as a basic rule in Team Wakabayashi, our fundamental path, our fundamental goal is to help each other be successful, not ourselves. It's the sacrifice.
So it's definitely my turn to reflect how glad I am to be speaking with you, because I think you're literally, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's it. That's what you're leading. We just met, so it's not like we planned to have this conversation in this way, but that's exactly it, right? To have a culture where, because what I hear you when you say we don't point fingers, right? What I'm hearing you say is we give each other grace.
That's right.
We honor one another.
Yes.
We believe the best in one another. That's what I'm hearing you say. And those are also part of the tenets of love, right? Imagine being part of a team where even if you mess up, you're not going to be sort of berated for it. Of course, you're going to not want to mess up because you want to love.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. These things are not there to drain finances out of the business. They're here to give you people who will probably go above and beyond because they see that they're valued.
You know what? One of the teammates called it, because I'm certain my system is not as refined as yours, but there's a lot of uncertainty with grace because you have to accept that they'll be unknown. Yeah. And what I will tell you is that one of the people on the team described our team culture as a healing tornado. Because when I've had people get on, like something will go terribly bad with the client. Let's not say bad, it's unexpected. Yeah. We didn't get this. Our expectation, we didn't meet the client expectations. Mm-hmm. We didn't meet our own expectations. And I've had conference calls where somebody says, I am so sorry that this happened. And I'm like, pause right there, back up. It's the self-talk. Yeah. We're not sorry this has happened. We celebrate it. This is where the learning happens. This isn't about being wrong. It's about learning. And guess what? Our clients, they're not sorry. They're part of this with us. We selected our clients specifically because when we engaged, we said, here's our thing. Mm-hmm. We don't make promises. We don't make predictions. We're not about achievements. We're not about quotas. We're not about bullseyes. We're about the journey and solving with you. So if you have a problem, we're going to work with you and we're going to put our minds on it and we're going to make baby steps or we're going to make leaps and bounds and we're going to have setbacks and we're going to have failures. And what we're going to do there is we're going to move together and we move as one and we are ready for what happens. And our clients thank the universe. Our clients, the leadership, they're like, oh, that went really unexpected and that's bad. I will tell you, just being vulnerable, I have a client I have worked with for over a year and we haven't produced a single positive metric for them whatsoever. And 6 months into it, I said, I don't think we're the right team. We're failing you, so let's not, you need to make this investment somewhere else. And they said, we're going to just stick it out for a little bit longer. A year in, I went and I said, hey, you spent all this money and we've produced zero accomplishment for you. And this leader said to me, he said, Dennis, when we hired you, we told you how hard this job was, how difficult it was. And you're in a year and you haven't produced a single result. And I said, yes, sir, that's right. And he said, now we're fairly certain you now appreciate as much as we do how difficult it is. Let's keep going. Yeah. And so these are the leaders who recognize that it's not a press of a button or a deployment or an initiative or an investment. These are like human beings who are in it to win it with them.
And that sounds like the right kind of client.
Yeah.
You know?
All of our clients are like that. We don't have a single one. Any client who raised the red flag of no, that didn't have grace, we just immediately said, I'm sorry. We rather be small or you know what? We love our clients. We love the people that we work with. And what you said is 100% unorthodox, unconventional, and I'm not certain it'll survive, but I'm doing it.
That's good. We'll see what form it takes. I do think that there's no escaping the reality of it.
I hope
Because
you're right.
there's a, you know, it's fundamental to how we are designed and how we're wired. It's what we put this, I think this film of we are in a corporate environment, so let the thing I just did and said to my son or to my best friend or to my coach, let that be outside of work. But the same thing I get and I give outside of this, let me not bring it in. I think there's also a generation who is thinking about work and what it means to be a customer very differently. And so this notion of love, whatever organizations choose to call it, right? They may not call it that. I'm calling it that because I'm very specific about what I mean. But this notion of seeing people, of leaders that put themselves and say, I will come to where you are. I will think about the things that matter to you. This is not, it's just a fact. Whether or not it's embraced, it's a different thing, but it's not going to it definitely won't stop me from speaking about it.
So we've talked. I don't want to take too much of your time. I thank you for the topic of love and customer experience because.
And so, our time together in the wild has come to an end. To continue your journey with Dennis, connect on LinkedIn or find out more at teamwakabayashi.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the world of CX in the wild.